How's it going, Firestarters? This is Mirthy, and you're on MirthyMoney. And this post is going to be focused around minimalism and how it relates to reaching your FI date. This will reveal my somewhat common sense powered and somewhat radical mindset that propels me through my days. Everyone can get really caught up in the micro of a day or even a year, and they are focused on making money, getting their next cool product that they're saving up for, or even trying to pay off debts that can be blinding and distracting and stressful. I try to focus on the macro of life, though. Let me explain. Slavery. You didn't think it was going to be part of this, but it is. Hashtag smash the like button if you don't like slavery. In 1865, the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution, abolishing slavery in the United States. Many businessmen who lost their free labor were upset, but the humans were finally free of at least one type of discrimination. Of course, that law wasn't worldwide, and in some cases only pertained to certain ethnic groups that the government of the time saw fit. And of course, we know racism didn't disappear, even to this day, but it was a step in the right direction. People had a chance at freedom. Another type, debt slavery. Some people don't know about this, but in the early 6th century in Greece, an Athenian lawgiver by the name of Solon abolished debt slavery. In Greece, obviously. Up until that law was passed, it had meant that if you owed someone money and couldn't pay, then the loan giver could subject you to slavery in order to cover the costs. This scenario happened all over the world for many years, and technically it still does, only people got smarter about how they implement it. With the institution of the mega loan sharks of the world, big banking, and the gang-like actions of pressure into slavery for lack of funds evolved. In order to create a modern slave in this world, you have to make it seem like it is what it isn't. So, fast forward to 1913, when a few banking bigwigs got together in secrecy on Jekyll Island to craft what would eventually become the Federal Reserve Act. And after a series of financial panics and fear tactics, the people were persuaded into a desirable central control of the monetary system in order to alleviate financial crises. Now, it's true that they did and still do, but in some ways, it's kind of like how Hitler brought Germany out of a depression, with an accompanied insidious ulterior motive. I'll explain how this ties into FIRE and minimalism. Modern financial slavery. It's called financial slavery. You make debt easy to accrue. Examples like credit cards, loans, bills, and high consumer society. And basically, it's interest. Okay? It's killing us. Then you make it so it's not illegal, but you can basically hold it over their heads forever. This is what our central banks can technically do to our governments, too. The government is loaned their country's currency and now owe interest, which they could basically never pay back. On top of that, they raise the debt ceiling every year. Even the government has an expensive consumer mindset. These days in the U.S., no one can be considered property unless you're in the military. And whose government property? This guy. Thankfully, I'm getting out in about 6 months. Hashtag freedom. Now, whenever I want to buy something, I think of it like this. I am currently a financial slave, and everything I buy sets my freedom date back a little bit more. So I ask you, what's more important? Gaining my freedom or getting this truck or this air fryer or this Supreme hoodie, Gucci jacket, or even a Starbucks coffee? What do you think a slave would have said back in the 1700s? Would they have stayed an extra year as a slave if it meant they could have had some cool clothes or the latest vehicle of the century? I doubt it. This is what I meant in terms of my radical thought process. It's a bit excessive but effective. In terms of the more common sense thinking I was talking about, that's in regards to how I am as a minimalist. Now, there are different types of minimalism. A lot of people don't know this. You kind of just see someone doing minimalism in their life, and then you just assume that's what every minimalist looks like. Let's go through the types, so that way you might see yourself in these types without even knowing it. So one type is just for the looks. If you didn't know, there are tons of versions, and, some people just follow it as a fad or a lifestyle because of the way it looks and feels to them. The aesthetics can be very calming and pleasing to the eye. You aren't necessarily saving any money, though, if you throw away all your clothing and buy a whole new wardrobe of black turtlenecks and jeans so you can match Steve Jobs. And if you've never seen what minimalism can look like, just watch a couple of videos of Matt D'Avella on YouTube. His filmography perfectly captures the spirit of minimalism in a beautiful way. On top of that, he has great videos on mindset and lifestyle on a huge spectrum. Alright, another type of minimalism I like to call the hoarders that are buried alive. And this isn't to say that it's a negative thing, but these types of people are trying to declutter their lives. Many people do this every spring with spring cleaning, but they basically do this until their entire life feels cleaned up. One version of this is through the KonMari method, where Marie Kondo helps people clear out their homes in search of keeping only the things that spark joy for their owners. I tend to do this when I realize I own something I haven't touched in a really long time. One example for me, though, is a whole room. I moved into my first house and had set aside a room to become my office, art studio, recording studio type room. And what ended up happening was that it became more like a storage room that I rarely went into. So I decided I was going to clean it out and rent it out. So now the wasted space and place for clutter will become fuel for me to retire sooner. The next one I like to call the bougie wife, bougie life type minimalist. Mainly because my wife fits in this category. She's similar to me in this situation though, but tweaked a little different. She's fine with decluttering, but instead of living off of the most basic amount of things, she leans toward owning a few very valuable things. So she won't buy a lot of kitchen tools throughout the year, but then she might pick up the best blender on the market. This is essentially the category for the deal finders who go in and they don't worry so much about the amount of things or the cost of things, but more about the value and making sure the things they spend on are going to be good quality and last a long time. Alright, the next category we're going to break into it is the mind on my money and the money on my mind. I'm trying to move myself into this type of financial minimalist. It's all about spending as little as possible with a little tweak for me because I don't want to become a monk, right? I don't compromise or sacrifice too much. I just get it differently. I hold out on a lot of stuff so I don't have to buy it ever again. Or hold on to a lot of stuff, sorry. I use cloth diapers, so you buy them once and they last your whole kid's diaper life. I buy their clothes from Facebook Marketplace in a huge bag for $5, and I store the old ones in the attic for the next baby who comes along. Or I gift them, one more gift that I didn't have to buy. I always buy from the best deal or time of year and try to outsmart the addictive shopper inside myself. And that's only if I can't find it secondhand somewhere else, which is basically never. Graham Stephan on YouTube was a go-to on this subject. He's definitely cheap and thrifty, and with that came his millions just that much quicker. I like to watch my spending and really ask, do I want this or do I want to retire? Mr. Money Mustache also follows and teaches these principles. It's much easier to spend less than make more money. And if you notice after you reach FI early, you can keep building your investments up until your kickbacks are high enough that you don't live sparsely anymore. Look at Graham Stephan as he buys expensive watches and shit because that's what he likes. And Mr. Money Mustache, who's got a huge house because he didn't want to give up on that. But it's the order you do things that helps. Delay buying with your earned income. That puts retirement farther and farther away every time. Buy with your passive income and it's like getting free stuff. Next type is the off-the-grid type person. If you're the type that isn't the kind of person who wants to pack rat and save so that way you don't have to buy anything ever again, you'd rather not have possessions, you might be someone who truly values exploration and experiences more. Some people love to get the amount of things that they own down to 50 or less. Now that might seem extreme, but all their money can go to spending on things like travel, classes, hobbies, or anything that they want. These are the backpackers of the world and the vagabonds who don't really like to stay in one place, or at least they like the freedom of being able to carry everything they own in their bag. In some ways, it's scary not having a home base to come back to, but in others, it's true freedom. No government or state tracking your address or your expenses. No one can find you unless you want them to. Going off grid is totally possible with this version. The next version is like a hippie style. The last one I'd say is more humanitarian minimalist. The hippie, right? If you know who Rob Greenfield is, then you know what I mean. I'm talking about the tiny home dwellers who build them themselves, farmers market goers, and the people who try to produce as little waste at home as possible. Eco-friendly people who make their own utensils and decorations, reusing everything and recycling the rest, and not even buying things that can't be recycled. They're all about health. They are bikers over car drivers. They love gardening in their homemade gardens where most of their food comes from, and rain barrels for their drinking water. This is truly the EcoNet's dream of way of life, out in the wilderness or even in the city. It doesn't really matter. Personally, I follow minimalism in a couple ways. No one said you had to pick one, and I am a mixture of maybe the financial minimalist. I do it for the peace of mind, having a clean home. I like to feel self-made, and I care about the world we live in. I like minimalism because I can save a ton of money, which will help me reach my FI date much quicker, since I'll be investing a higher percentage of my income. I love having a home that's not cluttered and full of stuff that I haven't touched in a year, because it literally de-stresses me when I clear it out. I like being creative and using ingenuity to make things instead of just buying them. I'm addicted to learning, so I will look up how to do something like gardening or fixing my house rather than just buying pre-made things or services I don't need. And I love feeling like I'm making a difference, whether that's limiting pollution, helping hunger problems, or dealing with sewage and waste, or new forms of natural energy. This gives me life centered more around family, friends, and passions than jobs, flash-in-the-pan possessions, and years of working. So through my thought process that I am a slave to the financial system until I build my passive streams of income up high enough to live off of, or high enough to supplement with whatever income I gain from the passions and hobbies that I have. You couple that with the minimalist ideals I choose to live by, I believe that I will be able to reach FIRE in my 10-year goal. Some of these types are better at saving you money than others. Some help you save with that directly in mind, and some help you save as a byproduct of their actual goal, and some make you spend more. So let me know what kind of minimalist you are, and if you think minimalist is a hard fucking word to say, and if you think it's currently helping you reach FIRE or not. You're also welcome to share your FI number and projected FI date so that we can root you on. Comment below if you don't know how to find those numbers. I'll be making a post about them eventually. But that was how minimalism correlates with FIRE, and if you want more knowledge on any of these subjects in regards to FIRE, retirement, investing, real estate, credit, frugality, things like that, then be sure to follow on MirthyMoney.com. Check out the SoundCloud account and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And keep it up, FIRESTARTers. Real quick, if you didn't know, I have some cool links down in the description. A couple, links that you click and you'll get some free stocks through WeBull or a free stock through Robinhood. If you like audiobooks, there's 2 free audiobooks through Audible. And there's also a kind of 5-book list of my favorite starter books in terms of financial mindset and rental property investing. But with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video.